This is a great group. We're so excited that you're here. In case you've gotten to the wrong place, this is preparing for camp. Hopefully that means that your child is going to camp. I don't want to be the one to break it to you that you don't get to go, but your child is going to camp. Or you're here, maybe you're thinking about camp for next year and you're not 100% convinced and you want to talk about your anxiety a year in advance, in which case you're also welcome to be here too. I am Marielle Benjamin. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm the director of groups at Cooper. I've been working in early childhood for the last 17 years and running parent education groups for the last 9. These are the humans I am responsible for. That's my husband, Matt, and that's Madeline, who's 11, and Lucas, is 8, and they are both going to sleepaway camp this summer. Lucas will be a first-time camper, so I'm totally in this boat with you. Maddie will have the advantage of being a second-year summer camper, and so she feels like quite the professional, but still new for me. I thought I would just start and tell you a little bit about Cooper in case you got here through the incredible Summer 365. But if you are here new to Cooper, we are an online parent community. We are the village that most of us need but don't have, centered around monthly psychoeducational parent groups where you join a small group of 12 to 15 parents, matched by criteria that matter most to you. And we travel through the journey of childhood and parenthood together, talking about your child's development and different strains, struggles, joys, and triumphs of that experience, all evidence backed, all grounded in science. Nothing you'll hear tonight is my opinion. I'm happy to give you my tips and tricks, but it's all based on the research about how we know children grow and thrive. We also do assemblies like this one and incredible partnerships with people like Lauren. And we have 24-hour chat features and office hours where you can drop in and a million other things. So please check out Cooper. You should have our information from registering, but we'll also send you a follow-up, and we hope you check us out. So I am thrilled to be doing this event, both because I feel really passionately about camp and helping parents prepare, but also because of this woman and how much I adore Lauren and the thrill that we have known each other for all these years, been talking about how much we need to collaborate on doing a camp event, and it's finally tonight.
Yes.
Yay!
It is here, and I am equally as excited and so grateful to have you here to collaborate tonight for so many people in our community. So we've had the pleasure of working with so many people on here tonight to help them find the best fit sleepaway camp for their child and for their family. And for us, finding the right camp, our work together does not stop there. We hope to be a resource to families in this new part of their parenting journey. Said it to you so many times, Marielle. I've been a disciple of yours for 7 years. I said, when I'm ready, when I'm going to send my first child to camp, I'm like, I'm going to need you and my people are going to need you. And so I am in all of your shoes tonight. I have a first time camper myself. And, Summer 365, we are here to be trusted advisors. And that's exactly what we're here to do tonight with Marielle. And as this big moment has been approaching, I said we have to get our heads together and help answer all the questions, all the feelings and emotions that we're all going through these next couple of months, this April to June, after you've found the right camp. It's kind of like when you're first having a child, or even before that, planning a wedding. It's an important thing to do. You want it. You have so many questions. You don't know where to start. You have lots of feelings, lots of emotions that you need to keep in check. And all the while, it's going to be the most magical experience, which really is what we have to look forward to with Sleepaway Camp. So our goal tonight is to provide everyone just the clarity and calm needed to make this transition smooth, easy, and successful. And I will let Marielle take it away, and can't wait to go through all of this. And I myself will be taking copious notes on everything.
Well, hopefully you guys have the handout and you don't have to take any notes, so you can just cheat and follow along. But yes, and it goes without saying that Lauren helped find the camp for my children and has been an incredible resource for me on all things camp that may have changed in the just couple of years since I went to camp. Just a few. So let's get into it. We hope this will be the first conversation of many in helping you and supporting you through this journey. I always want to start with getting yourself into the mindset. In case you manage to get yourself out of your anxiety for a second, congratulations, except sorry, we're taking you right back in. I would love for you to just take a second to reflect. If you are brave and feel like writing it in chat, awesome. If you don't, you can write it for yourself or just say it for yourself. But I want you to think about your biggest fear or potentially your silliest fear. And the silly part is probably because you judge yourself for having it. And then your biggest hope or wish around this camp experience. So, what you feel terrified of yourself or on behalf of your child, and what you are hoping and wishing for them. And then, as we talk through all of the anxiety and where that's coming from, and then circle back to our expectations, hopefully you'll gain some clarity. Maybe you'll be able to laugh at the fear and accept it and move through it. And maybe you'll understand that your hope or your wish is probably either not the thing you have to go for, right? You can set the bar a little bit lower, or it can be a wonderful, welcome surprise if it happens, but you can have a different attitude around it. Will it go well and will it go seamlessly? Well, spoiler alert, it won't go seamlessly, but
Mine
it
was specifically
will
on
go
sleep
well.
also. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Terrified I'm going to miss her and not be able to handle it. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. That the camp isn't a good fit. And then he will never like camp again. Oh, Claire, I get it. I so get it. Getting homesick. So, right, a lot of these things, they might happen. And so worried that they won't eat. Okay. These are so good. Won't make friends. Yes. Yes. These are the things we worry about our children endlessly, right? Endlessly. And so hopefully tonight we can at least give ourselves permission to know that they're going to be okay, even if some of these worst fears come true. Because our main point for tonight, if you walk away with one thing, is going to be we are not trying to prevent anxiety. We are not trying to guarantee things won't happen. We're not trying to avoid the feelings. What we're going to do is build your confidence so you can build your child's confidence that we can go through this, right? So it's going to start with just the acceptance that things will happen, freak out, trouble getting in the car, and even getting it. Oh my God, I had so many fears about the bus, Melissa. We could talk all day long. That bus, I just swore it was going to be the worst thing. Did that happen? No. Did other things happen? Absolutely. But that's going to be the point. We're going to learn that we can survive all of it and that we do that for our kids. She fears meeting new people. Huge red fat caterpillars. I love that fear. How specific is that? Okay. So for today, we're going to start with the value of sleepaway camp. In case you weren't already convinced why you made this decision, sometimes it's good to have a little reminder that this is actually good for your kids and you weren't crazy when you thought and made this decision and all of this planning. Then we're going to create some space for all the emotions that you're having. We're going to get a little bit into anxiety. We're going to talk about the power of the parent-child relationship to survive that anxiety. And then we're going to talk about the skills that we can do between now and the bus arrival in June or whenever you're going. Some of the skills that we can grow and prepare, knowing that that's coming, because some of those things we can get in front of. Super scared she will be homesick and you will want to go and get her. Great. We're going to talk about that one specifically. So, as our ground rules for today, feel all the feels. Let's support each other. No judgment, forgiveness and grace for exactly where you are. Let's try to suspend the competitive parenting thoughts we all have. We don't parent in isolation. We're very social creatures. We both pick up each other's anxiety and give each other anxiety at all times. So let's try, for the sake of tonight, to just welcome it, accept that we're all nervous and that we're all in this boat together, and that probably our kids, whether they say it or not, are having some of these feelings, and that we're just going to go through it tonight and move forward from it, right? So no guilt or shame here. And I left plenty of time for questions. And even though I can't see your face, which stinks about webinars, I'm so sorry about that. But hopefully you will give me all the nitty gritty of what you're feeling and worried about so that we can make you feel better individually about as much of the circumstances we possibly can. So research, again, we're always coming back to research, tells us that the separation that you experience in summer camp can be a magical experience for children. That's why you are all here, right? Because somewhere, somehow down the line, you believe this to be true. But we have a lot of evidence. I'm into the evidence that proves that to be true, not just that warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart that I still have when I think about sleepaway camp. But we know that this experience helps children across the board in areas like self-esteem, in their ability as leaders, in their willingness and opportunity and openness to try new things, in the confidence that's required to do that, in the social skills that's required to go somewhere and try that out and meet new people, an opportunity for independence they don't get normally. And then that spirituality, which is really in the research, that sense of belonging that we're going to really dig into, which is one of our most important aspects of mental health, is that sense of belonging, which is so rich and so true at sleepaway camp. So what does all of that mean in terms of what opportunity is doing what for you? So we're going to go through some of the opportunities that exist at camp and why developmentally they're A, so awesome, and B, so unique to the sleepaway camp experience. So one of them is nature. So you may have noticed that we spend a lot less time in nature than we used to, except that we know that nature has a very powerful impact on our mind body experience. So, nature is one of the best ways to inspire the feeling of awe, right? Not like awe, but like ah, right? Like that one. Don't make me sing. The idea that you can lay in a field and look up at the stars and feel simultaneously very, very small and yet very, very connected to something big is a really important experience in childhood. The idea that you are a part of something in nature and one with things like running through the woods and swimming in a lake and having those types of experiences, but also get out of a little bit in your head of just me and my life and my corner and the things I do every day and how small our children's worlds really become. The opportunity to have that is linked in the research to all kinds of wonderful outcomes, including greater empathy, greater ability to relate to others, peer relationships and interpersonal relationships, a decrease in mood disorders and anxiety, right? So, again, powerful influence that just that time away from their environment and in an environment in nature, hugely beneficial to kids. By the way, I'm super casual if you couldn't tell. So I love when you interrupt with questions. Put them in the chat. Lauren, you'll read them if I'm not reading them while I'm talking. But you interrupt me too if there's anything else
I
that you
got
want
you.
me to
Yes,
say as I
totally.
go. Okay. Otherwise, I'll just rattle on forever. Then there's unstructured play. So this one seems really obvious, except that again, our kids don't get to do it very much. Between the extracurricular activities that you have your kids signed up for and the structure of a school setting, our kids very rarely get to follow their own lead and do the things that they want to do. And unstructured play is the place where creativity lives, right? That's the place where kids come up with their own games, where they figure out their own challenges, where they come to grow and understand in a way that boredom creates. So, most parents will tell me all the time, I know boredom is good for them, but it's exhausting for me. And I hate being told constantly all day that my kids are bored, right? And maybe that results in screen time or in you planning more activities because you just don't want to hear them complain. But boredom in the unstructured play that exists at camp actually fuels creativity and invention for kids. So that downtime that might be so hard to do in your living room is actually so natural and easy for them to do at camp. There's also the idea that they go without testing, without homework, without a school agenda, where they get to follow and do what they're interested in. So, in learning, we want our kids to be in the zone of proximal development, right? Which is when they are interested in something to the point with which they will dig into it. They're curious about something, and so they will stay with it and study it and think about it to their heart's content. That's the kind of opportunity you can have when it's child led, right? When our kids can go to camp and figure out things and try new things that fascinate them, and where they're not always worried about the pressure of what's being taught on the test, what they need to do next, what's coming up next month, what book has been assigned to them. And there's just a lot more freedom for them to figure that out. Now we get to that sense of belonging, which I mentioned before. So Critical to our children's mental health is that they feel like they belong somewhere. And we know from the strength of the parent child relationship that that sense of belonging is really important there too, that our children feel seen and valued for who they are, not what they do, not where they go to school, right? Not who we are, but really for who they are, and that they feel like they fit in somewhere. Well, one thing is that kids won't fit in everywhere they go. That's just absolutely guaranteed for sure. But at camp, they can find themselves in a different way. And the opportunity to feel that sense of belonging in a new way is very powerful for kids. And sometimes when we're not doing as well in our school setting or with our friends at home or even with our parents, which I know seems impossible for some of us with young kids to imagine, but it does happen that sometimes that relationship is not going perfectly. Kids finding that sense of belonging elsewhere is hugely important to their mental health as they move forward. That is tied to relationships with adults who are not your parents and not your teachers. So they're not giving you a grade and they don't have all of their hopes and dreams wrapped in you, right? There's a lot of pressure in the parent child or teacher child relationship because there are all of these demands and expectations. But we have a lot of research about the chance for your children to be friends with other adults, especially young adults, right? Camp counselors who are an incredible resource for them to make connections in a different way, to be seen and evaluated through someone else's eyes who has a totally different agenda than you do or than their teachers do. And what we understand about, again, that sense of belonging, that attachment, is that the more people who genuinely see you and genuinely connect with you, the better. So if you have a camp counselor who really gets your sense of humor, the same sense of humor that your teacher thinks drives her crazy and she's so tired of you being the class clown, that your parents don't think is funny anymore, but you have a camp counselor that really gets you, that satisfies and is meaningful to your development in a totally different way. And our children, just like with sports coaches or with other extracurriculars, don't always have a lot of opportunities to develop those relationships across generations. And it's a really important feature of their time at camp. Then there's leadership. So, what does this mean? That you're sending your kid who is more of a reserve, slow to warm up kid, and they come back like leading the marching band? Not necessarily. But camp is a chance to reinvent yourself and to play a role that you maybe don't play in your everyday life. And that is also super powerful for camp. If I'm at school and everybody knows me and everybody knows everything about me and all my parents' friends know me, and there's really nobody else that I can say, I want to be into something totally different and I want to be known for something I'm not known for, I get to do it at camp. Maybe at school I didn't make the basketball team, but at camp I can play basketball. Maybe I've never done theater at school because I was scared or intimidated by all those kids who could sing, and I'm going to find that for myself at camp, right? So that reinvention, that opportunity to try out something new in a leadership role is hugely important to how kids develop over the summer. Then there's accomplishment that can be owned. So basically, what this means is that they're not doing it for your approval, they're doing it for themselves. So, this is intrinsic motivation, learning something for your own joy of learning it, or mastering it for your own joy of mastering it. When your kids get up on a water ski or water skis for the first time, by the time you get the letter and you're like, I'm so proud of you, it's way past. It's not about your reaction anymore. Whereas at home, almost everything is about that instant, what do my parents think? What did my teacher say? At camp, it's like, decided I wanted to do this thing and I did it for me. And the chance to feel valued and feel pride in yourself without those really key important people, your parents, around is again a rare opportunity for kids. We see all the time that kids may look to us for the first reaction of whether we're happy about something, right? And at camp, that's not really an option. So they're going to come home with so many accomplishments that you not only had nothing to do with, but didn't even know happened. And that is a really, again, unique opportunity. I'm saying the same wonderful things about all of them, but then there's electronic free time. So, I mean, I assume that one of the things you are excited about, but also nervous about, is the fact that your children will not see screens for whatever amount of time they're at camp. And yet we know that is so important to break some of the habits that clients tell me all year long they feel really paralyzed to break or that they have a lot of trouble getting past. Well, being without them does a couple of things. One, it proves to your children they can survive without them. Two is it actually interrupts the way that they are set up with their dopamine receptors to enjoy screen time. Screen time is addictive, like many other things. That doesn't mean it's all bad. I'm not trying to say that, but to break that, not having it actually reduces that dependence on screens when your kids come home. So it's doing you a huge favor if screen time has been an issue for you during the year. And hopefully, Lauren and I talk about part two of this talk, but hopefully when they come back, you can use that sort of clean blank slate to start healthier habits. Then there's something in the research, symbolic deprivation. And what that is that we are all extremely reliant on our materialistic sort of lives, right? We feel and think we can only survive with all of the luxuries that we have. And these opportunities to have this sort of symbolic deprivation, so nobody's being like left in a cold, dark cell by themselves, right? But an opportunity to go to camp, to maybe not have, oh, by the way, all the camp directors are going to frantically be like, no, you can take hot showers and we do have electricity, but let's just say you couldn't, right? I love a rustic camp. Maybe you can't do all those things. Maybe you certainly don't have a housekeeper who's helping you pick up after yourself, and you don't have someone doing everything for you, and you don't have all the comforts of home that you've come to rely on. You prove to yourself that you are less dependent on them. And again, you return to maybe it's not about all that stuff. Maybe I don't need all of that. And we have important indications in the research that that contributes to like that feel around being overly privileged and overly pampered, right? Is that we also don't know that we can do without, and this gives you an opportunity to do that. And I do think you get warm showers, so that'll be okay. Family meals, rituals, and traditions. So since ancient times and ancient cultures, we have understood that rituals make humans feel good. And so many of us don't have the chance to have those rituals in our lives anymore. And it might be one of the things you miss from your childhood or from growing up with a religious affiliation that you don't have or don't practice anymore, right? Things about rituals feel very comforting and soothing to humans. And one of the reasons is because they help us predict what's going to happen next. They evoke all of these good and happy feelings in us when they're familiar. And the regularity and consistency of them helps us to feel grounded. So almost everything your child does at camp is going to have a ritual about it. There's a song before you eat. There's a song to clean up. There's the song at night. There's the mantra you march on your way to the activity. There's the campfire that always happens on Tuesdays. There's the thing, right? Lots of ways to ground your kids in a community that they can feel very much a part of. And that has lasting effects. Kids year after year sing their camp songs together and wish and think about the ritual of the talent night, right? Or the time that they get to do this special occasion because it's so much a part of the fabric of that experience. And there's things like family meals where they learn to, if you're having trouble at home getting your kids to sit at the table and getting your kids to try new foods, camp's going to work on a lot of that for them because they're going to learn about meals as a communal experience, not like my mom yells at me and I shovel it in my face and I run out of the room. And they're going to spend time watching what other people have as positive modeling around healthy eating habits. And they're really going to grow as part of that community, all of that richness that that provides. And then the last one, did not advance, let's see, is the chance to grow up, which seems ridiculous because the goal of childhood is actually to grow up. But we're going to touch on this a little bit later. But one of the things that's really hard about growing up is doing it when you have these people around you who are so anxious for you not to grow up, right? And so some of the ways in which our kids need to spread their wings is that they need to do it when they're not restrained by you. And so there is a phenomenon where parents sometimes feel like their kids come home from sleepaway camp and they're a different person, right? They've grown and they've changed. And if that happens, that's wonderful. And if it doesn't happen, that's totally fine. But the idea that your child is on this journey to learn to grow up is very much present front and center at sleepaway camp in a way that you would probably agree, if you could be honest about it. Most of your day-to-day life is like, oh, please, no, I just figured this out. Don't grow up anymore. Don't do new things and new challenges for me, which is sort of our basic resistance to change. So that's why you go to camp. Hopefully, that was a good endorsement for the choice you made, and you feel better about the money you've already paid, because it's probably too late to get it back, and you're going. You're going, you're here, and you're going. So let's get into some of the anxiety and why you feel this way, and then some of the sort of things that we can do to target it. So, the first thing for us to remember, and if you know me, you have heard me say this 1 million times, but all feelings come and go. Feelings are like the weather. None of them are going to last. Not the ones that you wish would stick around forever, and not the ones that are hard, right? We don't have good and bad feelings in my business, right? But all of them come and all of them go. So just the basic understanding that your anxiety is going to be a partner with you on this journey and a partner with your child on this journey isn't bad. We are just accepting that all of these feelings are going to come up and that we're all going to get through them. So I don't know, I can't see anyone but Lauren, so she better agree with me. But those of you that read the Going on a Bear Hunt book when your kids were little, and you get to the mud and you can't go over it and you can't go under it and you can't go around it and you have to go through it. I want you to think as one of your key takeaways that we are practicing going through all the many feelings that your kids are going to experience and that you are going to experience around camp. And we're not going to avoid them and we're not going to prevent them. We're just going to allow ourselves to go through them. And this is a message you can give your kids about being excited and being nervous. So, first of all, if you've never explained to your kids that the combination of excited and nervous is, that thing that you feel in your tummy where you're mostly excited and a little bit terrified, or mostly terrified and a little bit excited, it's great to give them that language and to say, you won't feel like this forever. That's actually really powerful because kids don't know that. And in the intensity of the emotion, it's very hard to realize that this is not me for the rest of this summer. This is not 8 weeks of me feeling this way. This is a moment in time. And start to talk to your kids about, just like there's a rainstorm, eventually it passes. Just like there's a super sunny day, it might rain that night, right? And the feelings come and the feelings go. And it's all about knowing and reminding yourself that the next one is on its way and that you can go through it and survive it. Now, this brings up the fact that if you are very anxious and you are having a lot of big feelings, they are highly contagious for your child. And if we open the floodgates where I'm sharing my anxiety with you, and then you're sharing your anxiety with me, and then I'm sharing the anxiety with you, and then we're sharing the, then it never ends, right? And so most of us think we do a really great job of pretending we're not anxious to our children, and most of us do a horrible job. So it's our perception is that we don't look anxious, but our children really pick up on those feelings. So this is important to remember, that your kids are not you. Your camp experience has very little relevance to them. It might be why you decided to send them to camp, because you understand it, and hopefully because it feels like it was really valuable in your own life. I know for me that's such a part of it. But actually, whether you thrived, whether you were homesick, whether things were hard for you, whether you made friends that are still your best friends, totally irrelevant. So none of that goes on your child. Not the good things to get excited about and not the hard things that were hard for you. Your anxiety needs to be kept very much separate from your kids. And in whatever way we manage that, we are going to work on the end of this talk projecting confidence that our kids can do this. And if you have to fake it till you make it and drink a bottle of wine and use 100 tissue boxes in the other room afterwards, I'm totally fine with that. But we are going to put forward all things that signal that our child can do this and that we are confident in them. And when I say most of us aren't good at hiding anxiety, what I mean is, like, we ask a ton of questions about things we're worried about, or we dig and suggest feelings that our kids didn't tell us they have, right? Other ways where we suggest it's on our mind. Not that we walk around sobbing in front of them, although you might. Whoever said it at the bus, Melissa, we're going to have to watch out in the car and the bus. We're not crying. We're not crying, right? So we're going to think about managing that. Then I want you to think about the parenting environment today and a little bit about what you're up against, because it's not entirely your fault, right? The pendulum swings on how we parent. Like everything else in our society, we are highly reactive, right? And we are currently at a moment in time where all of us care very deeply about our children's happiness and our children's success and our children's feelings. And we are parenting as a verb for the first time, right? We're one of the first generations to coin that word as a verb. Like we're doing something all the time. We're actively parenting. I always like to tell people, like, our parents just had to keep us alive. The bar was really low. We feel like our children's happiness is our responsibility. And so I'm here to remind you again tonight that you are not responsible for your child's happiness all the time. You're not responsible for any of their emotions all the time. What you want to think about, instead of that over parenting that so many of us are doing, and that thought that we're snow plowing or helicoptering or whichever one you like, that we are removing all the obstacles for our children. Instead, we're actually helping our children to navigate all those obstacles in the comfort and safety of this really important relationship. Because how can we ever expect them to be able to do those roadblocks without us if we didn't let them do the roadblocks when we were around? So one of our major takeaways tonight is going to be that the overparenting and the hypervigilance and the, really sitting in their feelings all the time isn't doing us any favors when it comes to taking on challenges. And the last thing is that you're up against a lack of independence in our society. Times being what they are for a million different reasons that we don't have time to talk about tonight, our children have a lot less autonomy than they used to. So they haven't done a lot of things for themselves. And camp is an incredible opportunity for them to learn that, but you likely haven't practiced it all that much. So our children are really pampered and sheltered in a lot of ways that they weren't 20 and 30 years ago, and that now camp might be the first time that they're doing some of those things, and that might be part of what terrifies you and terrifies them, right? And that is part of why this is so hard. So these are just some of the reasons that this does feel so hard, and I'm validating for you that it is and does feel really difficult. So I'm looking at time, just a few words on where that anxiety comes from. So anxiety comes from the desire to control something that you don't know, right? If you have sort of productive anxiety, then you get really nervous, you make a list, you get everything done on the list, and you're just a regular old type A person, right? If you have those worries, the what ifs, all the fears that you guys put in the chat, those are the ones that have no solution. They just sit there and they bounce back and forth and back and forth. But a lot of them are around things we couldn't control if we tried. We have no idea what's going to happen to them. We also couldn't fix it if we were there because we're not responsible for their feelings. So, all of those anxieties that really we can't do anything about are the ones we need to try to let go. And why? Because we have this idea that our kids are fragile and they need our protection. But actually, the adversity of facing challenges is how your children grow resilient. So your kids can't get better at facing challenges if they don't face challenges. Your kids can't get better at feeling disappointed if they don't feel disappointed. And they can't get better at making friends if they don't try making friends on their own, right? They have to face these in order to grow from them. So here's a really good example. If I send my kids to camp and they're absolutely terrified about making friends, and they make a friend, a single friend that is successful. I don't care if they're lifelong friends. We don't care if you talk to them when they come home, but they have a friend at camp and they come home feeling good about that relationship. I can use the confidence that has occurred, the resilience that has been built by facing that fear and having it be successful forever as a model for them of the fact that they faced the challenge, they got through it, and they can do it again. Now they go to camp and their fear is making friends, and they don't make a lot of really great friends. They have a perfectly fine time, but they don't make a lot of good friends, and they come home with the same challenges that they might have left with because camp is not magically solving every challenge for every kid. But even in that case, I can use that example as a parent forever. I can say, you did something you were so scared of and that was so hard for you, and you survived it, right? Nothing happened to you. You had a great time and you came home okay. And that is where resilience comes, right? It's not that everything was perfect or, as Lauren said, seamless, ridiculous, ridiculous. It's not because everything was seamless. It's because it was bumpy and you still survived it that you get stronger. So think of anybody you know that you think of as being a really resilient person. I bet you they faced a lot of challenges. And that's actually how they grew that muscle, right? So, what are some of the tools, really quickly, that you can think about just specifically to anxiety for your own adult managing anxiety tools? That's not for Cooper, that's for a different situation in your own work. But I hope you have some that help you manage. And if you don't, now's a really good time to check in on what you're doing about your own anxiety, because the time away with your kids is going to exacerbate that, not necessarily quiet it for you, right? You might be a parent who's going to be scrolling the pictures, looking for the endlessly happy faces, freaking out when someone's not smiling, right? That anxiety can fester. So it is important that you deal with it. But what about for your kids? If your kids are anxious about camp or anything else right now, here's a couple of things that you can try. One is worry time. If your kids are talking about camp, things they don't know how to do, things they feel worried about, set aside 5 to 10 minutes where you just talk about worries and you say, hey, you know what, Stevie? Give me all your worries about camp. I'm going to listen to them. I might need to set a timer, right? I'm going to give you 7 minutes to tell me all of your worries. I'm going to hold them for you. And then you don't need to think about them. And tomorrow night, we can bring them back out and we can worry about them again together. Some kids are going to do well if they write them down themselves and they rip the piece of paper into 1 million little tiny pieces in the garbage. That feels good. Others will write it down and maybe want you to lock it in a lockbox, or they can just give them to you and you can just hold them, right? But I want you to give them the image that you will hold on to their worries so that they don't need to have them. And you can do that for anything, but you especially want to do it if the worries about camp have started, because you have a long time. And talking about all of those worries 24 hours a day from now till June will only make the worries stronger, as opposed to putting them into a place where you say, you know what? We've had our time talking about worries. It's totally fine if they're still there, but you're going to give them to me to hold on to, and we'll revisit them tomorrow. And you just give them the space to free up the actual worry time. Then you might want to think about explaining worried brain and a brave brain. So there are a million different ways to talk about the amygdala versus the prefrontal cortex. Again, if you know me, it's wizard, lizard, it's upstairs, downstairs, whatever you want it to be. For the context of anxiety, worried brain and brave brain work really well. So you might want to give a little suggestion about biology. Like I'm a science dork, so like I love a little scientific explanation, but you can say, we were made to feel things before we could think about them, right? So if a bear was chasing us, we would know the bear was coming and we would freeze in place, which I'm pretty sure is not what you want to do for a bear, but I never get that right. So I don't know. Don't take my advice in the bear. It's just an example. You could freeze, you could try to fight the bear, also I think not recommended, or you could run away from the bear, right? I think that's what I would probably choose to do, right? So in that situation, you can say to your kids, it's normal that you feel something super, super strongly when you are scared. You feel scared almost instantly. And that's actually good. That helps to protect us. That tells us when something dangerous is about to happen or when we really need to pay attention, right? If you've ever given a speech or performed in a play, like you needed a little bit of that anxiety, right? To get you into gear. But then we have our brave brain, which can remind us we're okay. We know how to do this. So you can start talking to your kids about, let's tell your worried brain, let's tell your brave brain to tell your worried brain that you're okay, right? So they can start to think that feeling the fear is not bad. It's totally normal. We actually expect it, but that their brave brain can remind them that they're actually okay. And then you might want to use a mantra. Now, every kid needs a different mantra, but something like, you're going to be okay. It's only hard for a second. You know how to do hard things. Whatever your little one is that resonates with your kid and feels like it works for your family and your values. And, like, don't say, like, kick your ass if that's not the way you talk in your family. So come up with something that feels good and feels true and makes them smile and gives them confidence, and talk to them about repeating that in those moments where they feel that fear so strongly so that they can work to talk themselves out of it. Is that making sense? Okay. Now we're moving to skills. Oh no, first we're talking about The other things that are so important to that is that you are just there and available. So the parent-child relationship, of all the things we know in research, is the single most important, which sounds like a ton of pressure, but single most important factor in your child's wellness is that they have a strong relationship with you. But that just means you have to show up and you have to be there. Not that you have to do anything. You want to be available for your kids, but you have to remember that part of being available is that you're a secure base to return to so that they can leave, right? We don't want our kids to think that they need to worry about us when they're gone or that they need to feel worried that we're sad when they're gone. We need our kids to feel like I've got you all the time. Wherever you are, I'm your person. And when you come back, that reunion will be so wonderful for both of us, right? So that they're not responsible for your feelings while they're away, and their leaving you isn't hurting that strain. It's actually proof that that relationship works so well that your kids can leave, right? Because kids who don't know that they're reliably attached to a caregiver have a lot more trouble leaving sometimes, not knowing what they're going to come back to. The second thing is what I was saying was the most important takeaway from tonight, which is that your children take their cues from you. If you believe in their ability to take on this summer, they will believe it too. If they sense that you're worried about their ability to do those hard things, they will read that as something is right about that anxiety, right? So if they have a challenge that they don't know how they're going to face, and you say, yeah, that's going to be really hard. I don't know. I mean, I'll be here and I'll pick you up if you need me to. The only thing that just communicated is, I don't know if you can do it either. And if you can't do it, I'm going to rescue you. Versus, you know what? It's totally normal to be scared about that. That could happen. But I know no matter what happens, you can get through it. And I am going to be right here to support you. But there are going to be a million people at camp who can help you through that if you need it. You are not, none of you, if you have done it already, then you're going to have to undo it. No one is promising to pick up their children. No one is saying, I'm right nearby, I'm right around the corner. Instead of giving them reassurance, it does the exact opposite. It only tells them that you're also worried they can't do it. So honestly, if you ended up being one of the, I don't know, the camp directors will tell me, but the 0.001% of kids who needs to go home, it would be better that you said to your kid, I believe in you and I'm not coming. And then you have to show up because the camp calls you and says, actually, you have to show up. But to tell them that you would is to actually acknowledge that there is a chance they couldn't make it. And that's not what you want to say. So you're going to practice sitting with your kids' feelings and saying one time something that validates that, like, that is really scary. And I understand why you're scared. And then the second part of that is the confidence. But I know you know how to do hard things. Or, but I know you're going to figure it out. Or, but I know there's a lot of people at the camp who are going to help you with that if you need it. So confidence is the combination, the support is the combination of I hear you and I feel you, and I'm confident you can do it. It needs both parts to be supportive and a supportive statement for your kids. Woo, there's so much talking. Okay, skills really quickly. Go home tonight and think of all the things your kids can do for themselves and have them do it. Then think of the things they can almost do and work on transitioning that into things they can do. I'm talking all the things that you do for your children that you know they can do. They should all be given to them. We want to encourage independence and autonomy, A, because it's a basic need for humans. We have to feel like we're in control of our lives, and B, because it's good practice on our way to camp, right? So everything they can do, they should be doing for themselves. For sleep, if your child does not fall asleep on their own, then they need to figure out how to do that. So clients tell me all the time, but it's okay. I sit in his room until he falls asleep, but he's going to be in a bunk full of kids and that'll be company while he falls asleep. No, it is not the same if they are fully dependent on you as saying that it's fun to go to sleep on a sleepover when there's lots of other kids talking and around, right? It's not, all company was not created equal when it comes to soothing for sleep. So whatever you're doing, I want you to think about slowly backing yourself out of your kids' ability to fall asleep on their own. Maybe you say, I'm going to sit for 10 minutes, but I'm going to leave when you're still awake, right? You go, I'm looking at Lauren, you go 75% of the way, but you don't do the last bit, right? And then you go 50% of the way, and then you go 25% of the way, and you are working your way out. Now you are replacing it with other transition objects, other things that she can bring to camp, other things that soothe her, right? Those kinds of things are fine to replace, but you're getting yourself out of sleep so that your kids know how to fall asleep at camp. You also want to talk to them about what do you do in your head when you can't fall asleep? Because that is a skill your kids are probably not very good at if they call you every time and you have to go in and then do the sitting or the whatever. So, talk about games you can play in your head. Plan a trip to your favorite museum. Go to Disney World in your mind. What are you wearing? What does it look like? What do you eat? Which ride do you go on first? Teach them a visualization exercise where they can imagine all the details of something pleasant and wonderful until they drift off, right? But go over that with them and again, work and practice that muscle. The other thing is, please don't send your kids to camp super sleep deprived. They're going to be a little sleep deprived when they come home. I think my daughter slept for 3 straight days and like sobbed in between from being overtired and missing camp and all of the emotional stuff. But try to prioritize sleep in the weeks leading up to the actual departure so that they go with a full tank, so that they're their best version of themselves, right? So that we want to, in those first hard days, at least in that transition, we want to give them as much to help them be successful, and sleep is one of the important ways we do that. Master the grooming. Can they do their own ponytail? Can they take a shower in 3 to 4 minutes? Play a favorite song and say your shower has to be done by the end of it. And like watch that shower, because if you've never watched your child take a shower, 8-year-old boys like to miss many, many body parts when doing it, right? Talk about flossing if that's something. If I'm sending my kid, my first time camper, with a palate expander, right? Like talk about the care that you might be doing for those kinds of things that they're going to be doing, because although they have so much support at camp, and I would never take that away, if they need help, everybody there is going to help them, but you want to prepare them for your absence by helping them get a handle on it. It doesn't mean they have to do it as well as you do it. It just means they have to feel like they understand what needs to be done, and that they also know that it's not going to be an assumption that a counselor is going to do it for them, right? We don't want them to get there and be like, hey, will you floss for me? That's not going to be the kind of thing we're going to suggest. If they said, I can't do it and I got the floss stuck in my teeth, I had a client with this. Of course, somebody's going to help them. They're not going to be left alone, but it's going to be the kind of thing they need to understand is going to be theirs. Work through the hard moments. So this is from now till then. You are not rescuing. You are not jumping in to solve. You are helping them work through. And you can say, I know you're disappointed. We all feel disappointed sometimes. What do we do when we feel disappointed? Instead of, oh, I'm so sorry that you're so sad. I'll go get you another one and then it'll be fine. Oh, that broke. I'll go buy another one. Oh, that didn't go well. I'll do this one, right? Instead of just saying, like, yeah, let's work through that. Let's give you the opportunity to practice. You must prepare for homesickness. Over 90% of kids are going to have at least a moment of homesickness. So if you send your kid away never having told them about it, the assumption that they're going to be in that 8% that doesn't have it is ridiculous. Just say it. It's not going to be suggestive. It's not going to make them have more homesick feelings. And you can say something like, a lot of kids miss home when they're away. That's totally normal. And maybe it might happen at night when you're falling asleep, or maybe at a moment where everybody isn't around. But I want you to know that that feeling is going to pass. And that even though you miss me or you miss home, you're going to be okay. And if you feel worried about it or you need help about it, there are a ton of people at camp who know all about this and can help you with it. So you see in that statement, I understand where it comes from. I want you to expect it, but then I feel supportive of you and I feel confident that you can do it. And then your out is that someone at camp will help you. Your out isn't that I'm coming or that you call me or that you tell me. It's that you also suggest that you've chosen this camp because you trust these people, because you believe and have confidence and faith in them, and you want your kids to have that also, right? And by the way, everybody at camp is better about talking about homesickness than you are. Every single person who works at that camp is better than you are because that's what they do all the time, right? So give them an opportunity and validate their experience for your kids by suggesting that they go to them if they need help. The last one is consent and safety, which is tricky. And we're putting out a blog later this month specifically about it. But we want our kids to go to camp. You know, they may not have experienced nakedness in the way that camp can provide and changing in front of everybody and having all of those experiences. So it can be a time to just remind them that they're in charge of their own bodies and the way that their bodies are touched and the way that their bodies are talked about. And that if they're really little kids and you haven't talked a lot about private parts, you might want to use the bathing suit part idea. So any parts of your body that are covered by a bathing suit are your private parts. No one else is allowed to touch your private parts, right? And you can, if it was at home, you would say your doctor or me or your nanny or whoever, but otherwise you would say no one's allowed to touch your private parts. And again, you would say if you ever feel uncomfortable with anything happening with your body or with anyone else around your body, you need to tell an adult at camp, right? So again, you're going to be making sure they can share. You also want to talk about secrets. Most secrets are really well-meaning between kids, but it's good to explain to them different types of secrets, secrets that are silly, secrets that are scary, right? And just say, it's never okay for you to keep a secret for a grown-up, and you don't have to keep any secret, no matter what someone tells you, from me or from another adult that you trust. And then you could also talk about who's an adult you would trust at camp, right? Maybe you would find the nurse, maybe you would find the camp director, maybe you would find one of the camp moms. Who are the people that you know are going to be there that they can look out for? The last thing around consent and safety is puberty, which a lot of people have not talked to their 7 or 8 year olds about. But depending on where your child is with development and other children they're going to see, it can be helpful if you haven't done that talk. If you don't know me, you might not have thought about it. If you know me, I've been telling you to do this for like 150 years and you've probably avoided it. But talking about changes in bodies and how that's normal and how that's going to happen and how other people's bodies may look different than theirs helps to prepare them for some of what they're going to see and experience. Okay, I took too long. Now we have questions. Oh, we're just back to our initial questions. What does success look like? I just want you to think that success might be survival, right? It might be that you make it through this summer, and that's a low bar, but it's a great bar. If they find joy even once, I think you can call this successful. If they prove to themselves that they could do one hard thing, it's successful, right? If they walk away with their best friends for life and they're totally changed and they got over all their phobias and all these things happen, sure, that's great. But that is not the expectation we have going in for them. So set the bar low so that you also can feel the amazing, incredible joy of watching them come back and just feeling like yourself in awe of the fact that these creatures who were so little just 1 minute ago are capable of so much, and enjoy that. And if we make that bar too high, we sometimes miss out on all of the other joy. And know that some of the camp effects are, well, they're definitely lasting, but they're also delayed. You might not realize how good they've gotten at some things like making friends or putting themselves out there or trying new things until 2 months after they came home. And you're like, I have a kid who's auditioning for a play. I have a kid who has a ton of friends this year and had no friends last year. Or I have a kid who's suddenly so into archery because they did it at camp and they found something they love. By the way, where do you do archery besides at camp? I don't know. That was a camp example, and then I don't know what you do with it. But anyway, whatever you've discovered, you may not realize right away all of the many successes that they had. Now I promise I'm going to stop talking.
I know you hate talking that long
Stop
without feedback, without a shared thing. I
without
think it's a great grounding reality to end it with, because I think, I went to camp for 12 years. I had this magical experience. They are my friends for life, but camp is not always magical. It's a magical experience overall for all the reasons we're talking, but every day is not magical and wonderful and the best ever. And all the realities of what we experience every single day with our kids about drama and friendships and this and that. And it happens at camp too.
Of
I think the
course.
scary part is that we have no control over it and we don't have access and visibility to it on a regular basis. which
And
is
yet, if
both
we
for
looked at all
them
the,
and for us, right?
that's right. But if we looked at all the research about it, it's probably better that we don't, right? It's like childhood in the wild versus childhood in this very sterile, controlled environment. So give us your questions, put things in, thoughts, feelings.
And I had a couple questions emailed. I'll see if there's
Oh,
any
great.
in the chat, but there are a couple of people emailed questions, but I want to see if anyone who's here would take precedent. If there's any questions specifically about any homesickness, anything we covered here. And I guess I'm going to ask a personal question too. I think I have a child who's actually not fearful whatsoever about being away from home or even being homesick. But I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, we should definitely approach this conversation. We
Yeah.
should, it's like what I think that's the important piece. We've talked like, whether you feel anxious or have none at all, you have to address the topic and
Do.
talk it through. And, would you say it's a good time to start now to have these conversations? How soon is too soon? We're 2 months out from Northeast camp start dates, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's nothing wrong with having it now. No conversation is one conversation, right?
Sure.
I think it's a very adult concept to say like I'm going to say it one time and you're going to absorb it and remind yourself of it. For kids it's more like many little conversations along the way, right? So I might just say, "Hey, something it's very common for kids to miss home while they're away. Do you think that might happen to you?" And Stevie might be like, "No, definitely not. Don't care. I'm not going to miss home." And then you could say, "Okay, that's great. But just so you know, if you did, it would be really normal and I know you would get through it. And maybe you'll have a friend who does instead of you and you can help them get through it." Period, the end. And then maybe it comes up.
And we don't dwell and focus on it. We make
we're
it,
not
yeah.
we're not dwelling, even if let's say she was a different kid or she's my kid who has told me many times, "I'm going to miss you so much, mommy. I'm going to miss you all the time." And I can say, "You might miss me all the time, but you might also forget to miss me, and that would be okay too."
Someone just wrote in the Q&A, I'm scared he won't miss me. I think
I know. You know what?
that's some of
First
our
of
worries
all,
too.
I so appreciate that at least you think this is a safe space to say it because it's true. But that's all about you and not about him. And I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled if he doesn't miss you because it's wonderful and it's healthy. And I think you just have to remind yourself that you've given him the gift of a secure and wonderful relationship that he can go away from you and survive it. And there's no like knock on how he feels about you if he doesn't miss you. But the other reality is that he probably will, whether or not he tells you about it. He'll have something he misses. I remember, this is like going to show how old I am, but I remember when we used to do phone calls from camp, which I think most of them have done away with the like old fashioned phone call, or maybe use
Yeah, or
Zoom.
having a calling card to call home. No,
Oh
now
my God,
they're,
the calling
yeah,
card. And
yeah.
I remember one day my nanny answered the phone and she was watching Oprah in the background. And I started crying and I was like, "I miss eating snack while you're watching Oprah." And I was like sobbing. Like, who knows what we miss? We just miss familiar things. So he might not miss you, he will miss something. And in that moment, what you want to really suggest is just that if he doesn't and he forgets to miss you, that's wonderful. And if he does miss you, that's also okay. And you're just making room for all of those feelings. And then you're doing your own personal therapy about why he might not miss you and how that makes you feel sad. But that's totally separate
That's
from
what you
personal
have
development.
time over the summer to
That's
address
right.
all those feelings. Yeah, in your downtime. Someone
That's
put
right.
a very good question about their child, Gabriella, about her child being worried about not having a friend to sit with on the bus, how to handle this and how to handle the fact that the overwhelming emotions will have me cry on the way to the bus, and she already knows this. And this is a great, and I want you to chime in, but I think, Gabrielle, without knowing what camp your daughter's going to, some camps assign seats on the bus, some do not. And I think kind of getting a feel for what's going to happen will be helpful, but I'll let Marielle, like from a developmental perspective, address how to handle that. Yeah.
I have to say, I think there are more wonderful, caring people on heightened alert for that feeling standing at the bus stop than anywhere else, probably in the world at one given time. Like that morning of drop off is all people who are uniquely attuned to the fact that there are going to be kids who don't know each other and don't know who to sit with, and are going to be wonderful, responsive adults in that moment who help that kid, in this case Stella, find a way to get on the bus. And it's not necessarily a great thing if you did know who you were sitting on the bus with, because that might not end up being someone who's important to you or a good relationship. And most of them have movies or songs they sing on the bus and other things they're going to do to not put the pressure on, like, we have to make conversation for the, I don't, my kids have they have like a 4.5 hour drive to camp or whatever. Like, they're not going to make conversation with each other the whole time. But I think I would just reassure her that once she's there, there's going to be a million people working to make sure that she's comfortable, and whatever she needs, they're going to figure it out for her, and not make promises in a way that you don't know you can keep. I want to address the crying. I really would love you guys to try, even like Jill is the one who's going to be crying. Okay, so even if your kids know this about you, my kids know, like, I cry at commercials, I cry at the movies, I cry all the time, right? So it's not necessarily a big deal if I cry. I want it to be something where you can really separate the crying from having your kids feel sadness or feel worry about you. So if you can cry, Jill, and be saying, like, ignore the fact that I'm crying. I'm so excited for you, and this is just my silliness, and have the most wonderful time, and I love you so much, then fine, you can cry. If any of you really feel like you can't go there without crying, without asking for 4 more hugs, without really making that a hard moment for your kids, you need to do some soul searching before then, because we don't want it to be on your kid to walk away worried that you're going to fall apart. And we also don't want your kid to have to participate in whatever ritual you need to say goodbye. So think about that, and whether you can make peace for healthy crying, or if it feels like it might cross the line. What's the right thing to say to your child in the final hug, knowing you'll be emotional and they're having that anxiety? Ooh, Mindy, that's hard. What a personal one. Like, I think that depends on the way you normally talk to them. I would think about doing a supportive type statement, which is like, one part, I know this is so exciting. I know this is also scary, right? That part that you align with them. And then maybe say, but I'm so proud of you for doing this. And I can't wait to hear and see all of the amazing things you're going to do. And keep it that way, so that there's something like validating, something super supportive, and then the confidence of, like, you're going to tell me about it versus like, I'm going to know about it, because you're really not. It's really going to be up to your kids to share with you how incredible that experience is going for them.
And then a question a couple above was writing them letters and emails. What are good topics to stick to? Which I think parlays into how our emotions will translate once into summer, making sure, I think there's a couple no-nos when writing letters and a couple things to keep it light and airy. But what do you think in terms of writing letters, and any pitfalls or things to steer clear of in our letters home?
You might be better at this than I am, because you've been advising families on this for 1,000 years. I mean, I would always say, know your kid and know what triggers your kid. If being too telling too many stories from home triggers them and might make them sad, a la my Oprah story, don't share those things. If telling them jokes might be more appropriate, I bought my daughter like scratch and sniff stationery, and I tried to be just silly, because she is an emotional one who, if she read something heartfelt, she would cry. And so
Right.
they couldn't be heartfelt. They had to be really superficial, ridiculous, not at all the letters that I wanted to write, but the letters that were good for her to receive.
Absolutely. And maybe not focusing so much on how much you miss them or all the things they're missing out on at home, if especially if that would be a trigger for them.
Yes.
Yes, don't do
So
that.
Amanda is suggesting, tell them about your day, make it boring. Today I worked and did the laundry. Yeah, definitely don't say you missed you. If you told them that you just worked today, that sounds perfectly boring. Um, I
And I
did
think,
postcards from the dog. I don't know, Lauren, if you
oh,
recommend that, but she loved them, because I
I
would
feel like
put,
feels like an excellent idea for
yeah,
sure.
I would put like a paw print from the dog, and I would be like, what's up? Do you have any cheese? Like, our dog is obsessed with cheese, and just like send it. So she would just get mail, but it was like ridiculous and nothing, and didn't
I
really.
think a lot of parents also feel pressure to write every day, especially since you can email and it can be there every day. Do you have any thoughts on the pressure of every day, or would you say, let's remove that pressure? Or
Let's remove all the pressure. I mean,
Yeah.
because you're
I
also
wanna-
going to expect, I think your expectations about what you're going to get back are totally out of whack. Most of you are not going to get nearly as many letters as you write. And I know all the camps are so great about requiring letter time, but also get used to the fact that you're not going to get them back. And that although they want mail, you've probably told a million different people to write to them, and you don't need to feel the pressure to do it every day. And also, I think camps, are focused on equity these days, and also making sure one kid isn't getting a bajillion letters and another kid isn't getting any, and that there's some feeling around that, and making that not such a painful experience. So I think our olden days fear of your kid being the one who had no letters, like camps have gotten much better at thinking about that.
Absolutely. And I recommend if everyone is not yet following homesick.com, the Instagram account, to know what emotional terrorists children are in their letters home, you start following immediately.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
I found my letters from camp when I was cleaning out things from my childhood. I don't know how my parents ever survived. It was so, and it was so untrue. Like none of that, I mean, in the moment it felt true, but I was having the most wonderful days. But I was one of those kids, like right before bed, I was super homesick every night, and the tear stained, feeling was so present with me. But the rest of the time I was having such a great time.
Yeah. Pick me up. Yeah.
Gabby wrote a zillion letters, pick me up. Yeah.
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 Um, I got several questions, but I think this sort of will speak to session 2. Should people be interested? All about kind of friendships and the social aspect of camp, and how do camps handle bullying? And I think what even is bullying? Because I think a lot of times we hear about, right? I feel like in our sessions together, we're talking about friendships and tricky friendships and how that all plays out developmentally. And I think that's a big piece, people feeling like, well, my child didn't return home with best friends, or they don't want to keep in touch, as you're alluding to. And what is even the expectation of friendships, and will my child make friends? I think that lends itself to a whole other session. And if you guys are interested in more sessions, I'm going to be I need to sign up for some. We can dedicate them to topics that you guys are interested in. If anyone's interested in the social element, I feel like that's a
Yeah,
big piece of this for the next step.
for sure.
Homesick.com, Gabriella, for the Instagram account is
But
like
I
spelled
think just
out .com. Yeah.
in general, most people I think in the chat were putting in they have 8-year olds or 7-year olds, 9-year olds, right? Like young kids. And friendships are not necessarily long lasting at that age. A lot of them are just not even developmentally appropriate to have those type of friends. So again, I think the easy answer to that is look for them to have a good, full, rich experience while they're at camp. Don't so much worry about them making friends when they haven't been able to make friends before, or making friends they keep forever. If they're learning to have positive interactions at camp, that's doing them a lot of good on their path to figuring out how to make those close relationships. There's so much you need to practice in friendship land, and it's so good to have the opportunity to. And I'm glad you brought up bullying, and we can obviously get into this in the future, but most of the time, kids feeling left out, kids even being mean to other kids, does not constitute bullying. And that there are lots of squabbles and arguments and disagreements and hurt feelings that kids need to get through, that again aren't harmful to kids. They don't have to feel good. Friendship doesn't feel good all the time, but they're opportunities for kids to grow and learn, and they're not necessarily traumatic for your kids, right? And part of that is also our own reaction. It's very hard to hear our kids had hurt feelings, or our kids something wasn't successful for them, but we can get into that in
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
whole other thing.
And I know we're a little over time, and I appreciate everyone sticking around. Are there any other last questions? We'll look here, but I think we've covered most. I think we're
Thanks, guys.
all right. This was excellent. We'd love feedback. If anyone wants additional ones, maybe we'll see each other's faces next time. But it
Yes,
was great to see your face, to be honest. It was
it was great
excellent
to
to
see
see
yours,
yours.
but we won't do a webinar next time so we can see everybody else's, even if you're in your pajamas. And reach out anytime to me. Let me know. Tell me what's on your mind if we do a part 2, or you know We'll get you in a group at Cooper and all the other ways that we can figure out to support you. And Lauren and I will continue to brainstorm. We've talked about lots of ideas to support parents while their kids are at camp too. So whatever that looks like, we're here to figure it out.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who is here, and we will hopefully see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Okay. All right.
Hooray. Bye, friend.
All right, do we end this?